G'day, Pat Tiernan here, Australian 10,000 champ, NCAA champ and Olympian. You're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Listeners, welcome to another episode of the Physical Performance Show. I hope you've been having a great week, and I hope that you enjoyed episode 40 featuring Australian sporting icon Kai Hurst. What an amazing career trajectory Kai's been on, which we all hope will culminate in a successful America's Cup bid this year with Oracle Team USA in just a few months' time. If you missed that episode 40 featuring Kai Hurst, Australian dual Olympian, open water swimming, and also Ironman champion and now elite level sailor, please jump across episode 40, take a listen, and you might even want to take on Kai's physical challenge of the week, which was the Murph Challenge. That was a bit of a harsh challenge. I haven't yet attempted it, but just the sounds of it, of Kai's description, it'll have a few legs and arms burning. So if you missed it, jump over, take a listen. Today's show, guys, is lovingly brought to you by POGO Physio. We're the physios that help you perform at your physical best through our industry-first, fixed-price, unlimited access physiotherapy programs. That's right, fixed price, unlimited access. If you need to be there every day, you're there every day at no extra cost to you. We don't care about the sessions. We just care about you getting back to your physical best across our 2, 6, and 12-week finish line programs. It's all backed by a finish line guarantee as well. Takes all the uncertainty out of the let's just see how you go approach to care. A big thank you to you, the show listeners, who have left reviews. One, I really appreciate you supporting, listening to the program, and for those that have gone on to leave a review, it means the world. Big thanks to Drummers Shannon 1, who left a 5-star review. Brad's podcast is so great. No rubbish, no ads, no plugs, just awesome athletes sharing their awesome knowledge experience. Brad is so down to earth and shares his passion for physical performance with us in his podcast. 10 out of 10. Drummers Shannon, keep drumming, mate. Really appreciate the feedback and great stuff. Thanks for taking the time. Jason Kane also left a review, 5 stars. Insightful and an insider's look into athletes' hard work and backstories. Thumbs up. Thanks so much, Jason. Listeners, if you're looking to leave a review, you simply jump over to iTunes from your desktop or laptop and click on the little tab, search for the name of the show, the Physical Performance Show, click the little tab that says ratings and reviews, and rate away. 1 star or 5 star, doesn't matter. I hope it's 5, but the ratings really help this show get more visible and into the earbuds of more people like yourself who are seeking physical best performance and inspired by our show guests. Listeners, you're in for a real treat. On this episode today, I catch up with Patrick Tiernan. Patrick is an Australian distance runner on the rise. I caught up with Patrick while he was back in Australia after completing a rare double, national titles for 2 different countries within a few weeks of each other. So Patrick was back in Queensland, in Toowoomba, his hometown, and we caught up for a chat. In this conversation, we talk about Patrick's success in recently winning the Zatopek 10,000 metre Australian title trackside in Melbourne in November, and just a few weeks before, down in the well-touted Edward Cheserek in the NCAA College Cross Country Championships over in the US in Patrick's final year as a college runner. Mighty feat. Patrick's just connected with the mighty Melbourne Track Club, so I believe we've just seen the start of this young runner's remarkable career to come. So strap in, you're going to really enjoy this. This is a running star on the rise, Mr. Patrick Tiernan. Patrick Tiernan, mate, it's an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. You've had a bumper year, and I'm going to start by throwing you something a little bit curly out of the gate, Pat. What's one thing that scares Pat Tiernan?
Oh, mate, you could list off a number of things there. One thing that scares me in particular is, well, I've got to say, getting a serious injury. I haven't had one yet. Had the fortune, knock on wood. But yeah, that's a pretty scary thought, having to deal with that. But just in general, Dad when he's mad, it's pretty scary. But no, it's all. But yes, in all seriousness, a big injury is a big scare for me. So hopefully don't have to deal with that anytime soon.
And today, Pat, you're 22 young years, right?
Yeah,
you haven't had to overcome one yet. So mate, let's hope that there's none coming up for the next few years for you. Mate, you said when your dad gets scared, you're at your parents' place when your dad gets angry, you're at your parents' place at the moment. I imagine, mate, having you home for the December break after what has been, in anyone's books, mate, an unbelievable year with an Olympic debut, which we'll cover, NCAA Cross Country title, and then 3 weeks later hitting Australia for your first 10,000 metres AUS Australian Championship, mate. They must be proud. Did they lay out a red carpet for you in your bedroom?
Oh, not exactly. It's a great thing about that. There's always something new coming up, so it keeps you level-headed, which is good. So, but no, it was great to be able to share a lot of that with them. Like, I had mum and dad, and my younger sister in Rio with me. They weren't over for NCAAs, but I did have my dad's brother over there, which was great. And then mum and my brother Jack were down in Melbourne for Zatopek this past month. So it's been great to be able to share everything with them. And because they do play a big role in it all, so it's fantastic that being able to play a big part in it.
You must be Toowoomba's where you're recording this at the moment. They're golden-haired boy.
Oh, we've actually got a few surprise packages over here. We got a lot of rugby boys coming out. Matt Denny, I think he'd rather be called a country boy himself, but no, it's a great sporting community, and something that I grew up in, and having people who have achieved stuff like Olympics previously was always something that motivated me to keep going. So it's great to be able to contribute to that community.
So, Pat, growing up, you were born in Longreach. For anyone that's listening overseas to this, can you paint a bit of a picture, Pat, about Longreach?
I'll try my best, mate. It's been a while. Not much out there. So I do remember a trip out to visit my uncle, probably when I was 6 or 7, and it's a very sort of what you'd imagine a foreigner would imagine the outback to be. A lot of dirt roads and not a whole lot going on, but no, it's a great little community, and always they've always been such a tight-knit group and whatnot. So I'd love to go back out there eventually and explore it a little bit and see what it was like. But I know mum and dad had a great time while they were out there, so it's definitely something that's on my bucket list to do.
Yeah, cool. And so you more or less grew up in Toowoomba through all your formative years. Pat, How did you get started in running, and when did you know that you had a genuine talent?
I got started, mum and dad will say that I started back when I was 2 or 3. I'd always just go out and run alongside. Dad's a school teacher, so I'd run alongside the kids at their athletics carnival or something like that. But no, I'd say it was when I was 9. So that's when we started our school cross country, when you're in grade 4, and my math teacher at the time did this like cross country coaching in the morning for people, and so I showed up to that, and he saw that I was all right and asked me to come down to this local race on the weekend at Newtown Park, and from there he just sort of took it off, and he ended up being my coach all throughout my schooling years over here at Tom Bradbury. It's funny how things work out like that. But yeah, it really just took off from there. And then I think when I was 15 or 16, I really started to focus on it. And started to realise that it was something that I wanted to pursue in the future.
And were there any other competing sports, Pat, as you were growing up?
Oh yeah, I was always a huge cricketer. When I say huge cricketer, I was really big into it. I really did enjoy playing my cricket. I started that when my uncle got me into that when I was 6, and I would have played that all the way through till I was 17 or 18. Wow. But no, I just love the sport. Always have, always will. And I think there was definitely, as a kid, I would have definitely rather have played for the Australian cricket team rather than run at the Olympics. But as you grow up, you sort of, for me, it was more a matter of I started to love running a bit more. Just the places it was taking me and whatnot was just so much more exciting for me. So, but no, cricket, I'd always loved cricket, and threw my hand at a couple of other sports, but was never really hooked on them. So, it was definitely a big cricket and running were the two big ones for me.
What were those other sports, Pat?
Oh, mate, there was a bit of everything. I wasn't very good at any of them. Trained at rugby, Aussie rules briefly, field hockey, basketball. I wouldn't say I played golf. That was a recreational sport. And I'm sure there's one more. Oh, soccer as well. So, yeah, I legitimately tried everything and stuff just wasn't working. So, but there was running involved in all of them. So
that's the one commonality. And
that was the one thing that stuck.
Pat, you mentioned your uncle, got you into cricket. Is he disappointed you didn't don a Australian jersey for the cricket team? He must be rapt that you've represented Australia this year at the Rio Olympics.
He actually helped me up.
Oh wow!
Had me at his place while I was down for the Olympic trials, which is very nice of him. But yeah, I haven't actually talked to him about it. But he's very. I think he's just a bit of a sports nut in general. So he was rapt for me when he saw that I was going to the Olympics. Couldn't have been prouder. So no, he's always been a great influence on me, Rowan. So I was glad to be able to share that with him while I was down in Sydney.
And Pat, it's interesting listening to you talk about your school teacher being the first Tom Bradbury, to introduce you to really the sport and what's obviously such a great talent. Must be something in the Queensland teachers, Pat, because I know two of your fellow Australian teammates there for Rio, Genevieve Lacaze and Dame Bird Smith, both had teachers that played pretty pivotal roles. So it's amazing those teenage years really are so important, aren't they, in fostering talent?
Yeah, definitely. And following along with that, like both my parents were teachers at the time, and Dad still is actually. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just the environment of them sort of growing up, dealing with a lot of children and knowing what motivates them and what doesn't, was definitely a pivotal role in my career, both on and off the track. Yeah. And so to have guys like Tom and my parents around to sort of guide me down that path I was really fortunate to have that.
So Pat, growing up there, did you have any, running Olympians or any runners that you aspired to emulate?
Not really. I wasn't a big track fan when I was younger. I'd heard of Mottram and whatnot, but I think all my mates were a little more into it than I was. But no, it probably wasn't until I got to the US that I really started to follow track and field and learn who the big names were and whatnot. I did know the likes of Collis and Benny Saint, Gregson before I went over to the States, but hadn't really got to know any of them. It's sort of hard to follow progress in track and field in Australia. Just because it's not such a big sport. But yeah, over there it's another professional league, like people are so into it. So I think it's A, easier to follow, and B, just it's more out there. You get more involved in it yourself. So, but yeah, obviously Mottram was a great, fantastic athlete and the first guy to really stick it to the canyons and whatnot, which was just something that I'd love to be able to do. But I'd say for me, after getting to know Collis Birmingham a bit over this summer, he's really really probably, I'd say if I had one, he'd be my idol in the sport, just because he's such a great bloke and he's been so successful over his long career. So, yeah, if I can achieve half the stuff that he's achieved, then I'd be pretty happy.
So to date, Pat, big year for you this year. What would you rate as your single greatest accomplishment, Pat, in your sport life to date, your running career to date?
I mean, obviously representing your country at the Olympics is something that you dream about, and there's no other feeling like it, you know. But I'd say that's probably what I'm most proud of. As far as my biggest achievements, I think winning that cross country meet over in America was probably that's probably been my biggest result to date. Just because it's running in the race 3 times previously and knowing how hard it is to be able to compete against those guys. That was really a big deal for me. So yeah, I was very excited when I crossed the line there, and just the reception you get from the community when you're back, and even people over here sort of realised how big it was, which was great. So yeah, I think that was a big result for me, both because of the magnitude of the race, but also just I think it was one of the most well executed races I've had. So yeah, very, very big moment for me.
And Pat, can we go back to go forwards there? How did a boy from Toowoomba did you do well at running through the school years? Like, were you national level and really getting some results?
Yeah, just getting at how I got to Villanova in the first place.
Yeah, let's go, because I'm fascinated with how a boy from Toowoomba got over to Villanova, and we want to unpack this NCAA Championship highlight for you. So how did you end up hooking over there? You must have had some good results that, flagged notice for the selectors. Yeah,
I mean, I'd had a pretty good year. End of 2011 and all 2012 were pretty good years for me over here. Won a couple of national cross-country titles in those 2 years. Gold Coast 10K was a big result for me, winning that. And then I won the 15 and 5K double for the under-20s at the national championships in March that year, I think. So I'd had some big results. I didn't really have any quick times down next to my name, which I think was a little concern for a lot of the American colleges. But no, the reason I got to Villanova was because I'm pretty sure Nick Beddoe sort of mentioned me to Marcus, the head coach, because he'd had a couple of athletes go over previously and he'd had a role to play with a few of them. So he put my name up there, and then Adrian Palinko, who was the assistant coach at the time, I think he's the New Zealand 5K record holder, but basically, yeah, he was a New Zealander and was keeping tabs on everything that was going on down in the Southern Hemisphere. So yeah, I got a message from him one day, and I can't remember when it was, but it was during the first half of 2012, I think. Asking if I was interested in coming over, and I'd had a couple of universities send me messages before, but it hadn't been anything major. And having a look into the university, I saw there were a few Aussies there already, and they'd had a ridiculous program previously. Like, it's it's quite a legacy they've left there as far as distance running goes. So, and ironically, one of the things I didn't look into was how prestigious the coach was himself. So if I'd seen that straight away, I definitely would have ticked it off and wouldn't have even questioned it. But no, we were looking into it a lot, myself, Mum and Dad, Tom, and we just figured it was something that I needed to do, needed a bit of a change up, and thought it was the best thing for my career, both running and non-athletic. So, that's how I got there.
So how old were you when you went over to the US, Pat? You were...
I just turned 18.
Just turned 18. I know Genevieve Lacaze, spoke about her transition to college, and that the first year, I think Jen said she cried herself to sleep. Maybe you weren't crying yourself to sleep, but was it a bit of a transition for an 18-year-old?
Yeah, it was a transition. I wasn't quite. I guess for me, the reason I was going over was I needed a bit more of a change up. I've talked to Jen about her experience with it. I know she wasn't really too keen to go over to start with, whereas I was very different. I was. I'd started a university course over here and just wasn't enjoying it. And for me, it was an opportunity to sort of change that up and also step into a new environment. And I think that was pretty exciting for me. So when the opportunity came, I jumped at it. But yeah, I didn't compete my first semester. Just because I had gone to uni previously and we ran into issues with credits that were transferring over and whatnot. But I got to know a lot of guys on the team that first semester, and for me it was a lot of fun and really something that ingrained in my head for me that it was the right place for me.
What were you studying at uni here in Australia before you went over to the US, Pat?
I was doing a Bachelor of Exercise Science.
Oh, cool.
And initially I wanted to get into the physio field and whatnot. And then, I don't know, just looking into it. I'm glad I did that year because it did sort of give me a bit of knowledge into the biology behind my sport and whatnot. But I think just for me, I'm more of a mathematical and logic sort of guy, so it wasn't ever going to end well, I guess. So, yes, so I went over there and changed it and ended up with a Bachelor of Science major in mathematics and economics. So.
Oh, cool. So Pat, that mathematical ability would come in handy though when you're tracking your splits, right?
Oh, it's a gift and a curse, mate. If you're doing well, it's a gift. If you're not,
doing well running, you mean, or doing well at school, at uni?
Both.
Both. So, mate, right, you're in the US. You've adjusted 6 months sitting on the sideline, not being able to compete while you got your credits sorted out. You had 3 NCAA cross country runs, I believe. Finished second in 2015. Took the victory in 2016. You mentioned before, Craig Mottram was one of the first blokes to really challenge the Kenyans and Ethiopians, Pat, on the world scene. You took down Edward Cheserak in the final, obviously, just a month or two ago now. So, mate, you've duplicated that feat and shown that it is possible. But can you give listeners a perspective as to just the enormity of this achievement in terms of what the NCAA really means in the world of running, particularly the American world of running?
Yeah, so... for me, when I first went over, I was comparing it to Australian universities, and there's not really anything like it over here at all. So I went over was running a little dumb my first semester, and when I say that, I don't mean like I was stupid when I did it. I just didn't really know a lot about it, and so I just treated it like I would a race over here, and was 9th that first year, which was a great result, and I think a lot of people were really excited about it. But for me, I was sort of like, it's not bad, but it's 9th. It's not a win, because I think that's something that is great when you're over here, is you learn to race for the win every time, regardless of who's in the race. So, but no, and I think the next year was when I really started to realise what the NCAA was all about. Like I had an off day. And was probably in a bit better shape than I was the year before, and I sort of went into it thinking, I'll finish at least better than I did the year before. But I had an off day and I was 18th. Just guys flying by in that last straight who shouldn't be, but they are, because that race, I think after the first 10, 15 places maybe, where there's people who are ahead, from 15 to 100 you may be separated by 25 seconds.
Yeah, wow.
It's just so much competition over there, and I think the reason for it is that people going into college, they've got motivation to run. Like A, there's scholarships on offer, B, it's a team sport, so it's almost like being in a fraternity for them, being a part of that team, and it's you basically fit into a social group, which is great. And C, it's it's just people love it over there, because it is such a big scene. College sports, another professional league, and so for them it's their last sort of chance at making any sort of career out of it. And I think once you get to that level and you've got the team aspect on the line, like, so many guys just want to push forward with the season and do well. So it's it's huge. And I mean, a lot of people, I've had a mate who's mentioned to me a couple of times, and this is when it really sunk in. He was like, mate, I like, you've won a race that I went over and never even qualified for in the first place. Wow. And because a lot of people don't qualify, because if you don't qualify as a team, if you're not fortunate enough to be in a team that's very good, you've got to qualify on your own, and it's only the top 4 from each region. I think there's 9 regions in the US. So it'll be like getting top 4 at your state championships. And but yeah, it's a big achievement. And the other thing is, they're not all Americans. I mean, the top 5, I think, were all foreigners in some way or another. And yeah, it's a great, I think it's a really good competitive system. You're always going to find a good race over there, regardless of where you go. And I mean, I don't think it's the same as a World Junior Cross, but it's definitely on a level similar to that. So it's been a fantastic experience for me, and I think it's been a very good transition into professional running.
Have you had some incredible opportunities that have popped up since this? I mean, it's put your name on radars of, I imagine, all sorts of prospective people that now have identified with your talent.
Yeah, so I actually just committed to signing with Nick Bideau and the Melbourne Track Club. So I'll be I won't be training with them necessarily, but I'll be with the group, and when the European season comes around, and when they're doing an altitude champ or something like that, I'll be jumping along with them and doing that circuit, which I'm really excited for. I think they're a great group of guys and girls, so it's going to be exciting. And yeah, we're just sorting out contracts with shoe companies now. So
fantastic.
So it's all pretty exciting. A little scary. I was thinking about that when you first asked me what I was scared of. But yeah, it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes.
What's the fear around, Pat? Just transitioning, because you'll be based full time in Australia / travelling with the Melbourne Track Club. Is that what your next few years will look like? Obviously, got World Champs, Com Games, everything coming up.
So I'll actually be based, at the moment, I'm going back to the US to continue training with my coach over there. And there'll be a lot of work on my own, which that doesn't scare me. I've been doing that. I'm used to that. I've been doing that for a while. But I think it's just sort of making the next step. You go from such highs like I've had this past year to sort of being a small fish in a big pond, and I think just the fact that I'm very aware of that sort of scares me a bit, but hopefully we can turn that around in the years to come. I'm pretty confident about it. I think my coach is, Nick's got a lot of confidence in me, so I've got a good group behind me, so I'm definitely not worried about that at all. But just seeing how the next 12 to 18 months pans out is it's going to be interesting but exciting at the same time.
It's interesting. I mean, transitioning from any sort of collegiate, junior / amateur into the senior levels, it really is. Those first few years are, so transformative, aren't they? Just a question on the NCAAs. Were you the first Australian to ever win that title, Pat?
I believe I'm the second. Oh, I don't know if I'm the second, but I'm the first to have won it since 1960, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't tell you who that was. But yeah, someone sent me an article that said I was the first man to win it since 1960.
Is that right? Wow.
It's been a while.
What's the most unexpected congratulations you got post the NCAAs, Pat?
Mate, it's a funny story. I was out for a jog probably 3 days later, and just by myself, and jogging down the street, and this car comes up and it's sort of slowing down and winding down its window, and I'm looking at the driver, absolutely no idea who it is, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh no, this will be like another one of those sort of run, Forest Run or something like that. Just another
you'd get a bit of that when you Pat with a beard.
Oh, you get it all the time. Well, not even with the beard, just generally. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm running by and I'm thinking, all right, I'll just keep my head down and I'll just keep going. And this guy slows down almost to a stop and just sort of pokes his head out and yells out, he's like, congratulations on the championship. And I was like, oh, thanks, mate. Appreciate that. And just drives off. Didn't exchange names or anything like that. Just, and I mean, it's just crazy. Like, I don't think you'd get anything like that in Australia. That's how big it is over there. I mean, a lot of people cover it. It's in the papers. I think they even did a local news story about it, which is great. But yeah, that was probably the most unexpected one, and that's when it sort of started to sink into me how big it was that people I just wasn't even, who had no sort of relation to my life whatsoever, would just like recognise me and recognise what I'd done. And so, yeah, that was probably the most unexpected one that I got.
That's cool. And, Pat, I want to talk about Zatopek and then unpack your training and a little bit about the ins and outs of Pat Tiernan. But, mate, what is the story with the beard? Is there some significance there, or is that just how you've rolled for a few years?
I tried it for cross last year. There is a bit of superstition about it. I tried it for cross and won every race with it, and then I shaved it off for nationals and got second. And so this year I figured I'll see if it works. So I'm not putting it down to the beard, but it definitely I definitely kept it for Zatopek because of that reason.
Gives you some mojo. Well, let's go to Zatopek. Zatopek, Australian title, 10,000 metres on the track down in Melbourne, just a matter of weeks ago for you. Backed up your NCAA title with your second national title for Australia this time in a PB, I believe. The first time sub 28 for 10,000 metres. Yeah, first go at the distance on a track. So, oh mate,
yeah. So it was going to be a PB regardless, but no, I'm glad it panned out the way it did.
And what was your response to that? You would have known you were a genuine contender, Pat, going into that race?
Yeah, I mean, I think I went into it with the mentality that it was going to be a tougher race than NCAA's, just because I know I would rank competing with the likes of Brett, Dave McNeil, and Stewie as sort of tougher competition than those guys, purely because they've experienced a lot more than they have. Like racing internationally it's another level to step above. So, and those guys have done well when they've competed at that level, so I knew it was going to be hard. And they were going to sort of, how do I word this? I guess they were just more experienced campaigners than the others. And for me, it's always tough coming up against that, because you've got to readjust your race plan. And yeah, so no, it was a very proud achievement for me. I'm very glad I was able to pull it off. So it's a tough race, and it was tough conditions down there on the day. So it was it was great to come away with the win.
And the beard, is that going to come off now, Pat, or are you going to just nurture that through to the start of the new year?
My sister's just bought me some beard shampoo for Christmas, so
it's gone. It's gone.
It'll have to stay for a little bit, but no, we'll see how it goes. It'll probably have to come off in the summer.
More aerodynamic, mate. Well, I want to talk about Rio as well, but before we do that, let's do a performance round, Pat. So this is a bit of a more rapid sort of fire, some training-based questions. So think of it a bit like a interval session. Okay. All right, you ready? First one. What's the training session you most dislike?
Most dislike would be any sort of speed session, just because I get my wheels blown off.
Any examples?
I did, or just doing 100-metre strides with the 1,500 and 800 guys. You're losing by 2 seconds in 100 metres, and it's just embarrassing. But, yeah.
So training session you most love?
Training session I most love is I love mile repeats. They're great. Yeah, they're fantastic.
What recovery, Pat, do you have with those?
Usually 60 to 75 seconds.
Yeah, and they're full gas.
Not full gas. They're sort of probably around a threshold sort of pace.
Yep. So. Favourite pre-race meal, Pat?
Pre-race meal, I love a good steak the night before. Yeah.
Good steak. Is that what you had before Zatopek and NCAAs?
I can't remember what I had before Zatopek, but definitely before NCAAs. I'd hope it was a steak. That's what I think it was anyway.
Good Toowoomba steak. What about Rio? What did you have before Rio? The night before your 5,000?
Rio was a bit of a mixed bag. Whatever was in the dining hall at the time. I think they did have... Oh, they had Brazilian steak there, yeah, so it probably was steak.
You could have got a pass with Ryan Gregson and gone to the Nike hospitality. You said the burgers were pretty good over there.
Mate, I wish.
Mate, bedtime. What's Pat Tiernan's bedtime normally? Bed and morning. What's your hours?
Bedtime's usually around 10 or 11, and then morning is 7 to 8.
7 to 8.
Usually try and get that 8 to 9 hours sleep.
Yeah, smart. Good man. Mate, who's the athlete that you most admire and why?
Most admire? My idol growing up was always Matty Hayden. Coming from a cricketing background, but I just loved the way that he was so aggressive and confident against the fast bowlers, walk down the pitch to them and stuff like that. I thought it was always pretty cool. So, I always admired that. That's
cool. Toughest competitor you've ever raced, Pat, and why?
Toughest competitor I've ever raced. That's a good one. Probably be... I haven't raced him too often, but Geordie Williams is always a tough competitor. Times that I have raced him, he's dusted me. So he's... toughest competitor is Rob Denault. Rob Denault, Canadian, who was at Villanova. Always gives it 100%, he just leaves nothing in the tank. He's always flat out by the end of it. So, he'd be the toughest competitor.
Cool. And is there a mantra, Pat, that you use when you're racing? Like one thing that you routinely would use?
Like when I'm racing or prior to? Or?
Prior and when?
Not really. I just sort of try and stick to a similar routine prior to it, but nothing really sticks out.
What about recovery tip, Pat? Best recovery tip for people looking to perform at their best?
Always cool down. I'd even say sort of a longer, slower jog. It seems like it'll be worse for you because you're running further, but I feel like it always gets the junk out of your legs, and the sooner you can do it, the better.
Yeah. Cool. And psychology, race day psychology, Pat?
Race day psychology, race everyone in the field. Don't have your mind set on one particular person. You're still racing everybody else, and you don't know who's going to surprise you.
Yeah, wow, that's a great tip. Pat, Rio, I mean, you're 20, 21, 22, lining up in Rio. What was going through your head? I like to ask Olympians this question. What was going through your head, Pat, on that start line?
On the start line, it was pretty surreal for me. I was looking up and around and saw my parents were up in the stands, and you see the television cameras coming across, and then you come up on the big board, and it's all pretty exciting because you're thinking at the time, you're like, wow, like I've watched this on TV before, but now I'm here competing in it. And so you sort of lose yourself for a second, and then the whistle's blown, and you sort of snap back into it, and you're like, oh, okay, now I gotta do what I came here for. But it's just amazing being able to line up against those guys and be able to compete at that level and know that you've done everything you could to get there. And it's a great feeling.
And were you happy with your Rio debut, your Olympic debut in Rio this year in the 5,000 metres?
Yeah, I mean, I gave it everything I had, but I think if I'd raced, had a little bit of a different mentality going into it, and just raced a little smarter, I think I could have made the final. So it's not a regret, but definitely learn a lot of lessons from it. I think going into it, I was trying to I knew I was in the second heat and I knew it would be the quicker one. So I was thinking, all right, I'll try and get top 10, make it through. And I guess if I have one regret from it, it's definitely not going into it with the mentality that I was going to try and win the race instead. And so I think when you do that, you give yourself the best opportunity you can to make it through. And I didn't do that, and that's something that it's a mistake that I won't be making again. Yeah. So, no, great lessons learned from it though. Fantastic experience, and I'm really glad that I did it.
What is there one story, Pat, that you'd share with listeners about your Rio experience that just stands out for you?
Probably. I'd say my favourite experience was we were at the track. I can't remember who it was. I can't even remember who it was that was receiving their medal. But it was just a moment for me where I was with, I think I was with Luke Matthews, Sam McEntee, and Brett Robinson, and we were all standing in the, we're all in the stands, sort of just having a conversation. And then all of a sudden, everything went silent. We're standing up, and you're looking at the medal ceremony being given, and you sort of look around and you're thinking, gee, there's 40,000 people in here sort of being silent, like acknowledging this tri's performance. And then you look at the TV camera and you think, oh, there's millions of other people tuning in for it as well. And I don't know whether this was the same moment for them as it was for me, but I looked across at them, and could see they were sort of having a similar sort of mindset. And realising that it's something that we all really wanted to achieve at some point during our career. So that was a pretty special moment for me. Like I said, they might have just been thinking about what they were having for dinner. But yeah, no, for me that was definitely something that I'll always take away from it, and hopefully can drive me ahead into the future.
And talking about moving ahead for the future, Pat, what is on Pat Tiernan's bucket list in the sporting realm, and then in your private, personal realm, Pat?
At the moment, I'm looking, sort of trying to make an 18-month plan leading into Com Games. I'd love to be able to compete really well and competitively at those, and hopefully make a more, not realistic, but more accurate goal the closer we get to it. But no, being able to compete in front of your family and friends and representing your country as well is something that I can't even imagine right now, but I'm sure it'll be a great feeling when we get there. So that's the goal at the moment, and there's a few things to do along the way there. So World Champs in August is definitely something I'm looking towards, and potentially World Cross in March. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, definitely those three things would definitely be the biggest on my radar for the next 18 months.
And what of distances, Pat, would you be looking to run the Com Games and World Champs?
We'll see. I'd love to stick to the 5K for now, but I don't know. I'll sit down with my coach and agent, and we'll figure out what's going to be the right fit at the time. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yep. And Pat, in terms of your personal life, what else is on Pat Tiernan's radar? Is it all just running focus at the moment?
Oh, mate, I hope it's not. That'll be a bit dull. No, I'd love to start up an online MBA at some point in the next six or 7 months. I think that's something because I find the financial side of mathematics very interesting, and I think it's an industry I'd love to get into eventually. So, yeah, I'm hoping to start that up soon. But yeah, it's tough to get into that sort of field because it's a very demanding job, and something that just doesn't really go hand in hand with a running career. So we'll see how we go. Potentially do some sort of. I may have a internship lined up part time somewhere, which is something I can do from home as well, which would be great. Something to keep me busy, but no, I think just generally sort of getting things sorted this next 12 months and being in a good position come January next year is my major focus.
Mate, terrific. Couple of questions, Pat. Training, volume, what did it look like leading into the NCAA title and Zatopek? I mean, to give listeners a bit of perspective, how many gym sessions, hours, Ks?
Yep, so probably... we'd sort of do big blocks of 104 weeks of 120 to 130 Ks a week. and then leading into NCAAs, I took it down to close to 100 2 weeks out, and then the week of may have been as low as 80. And then a couple of sort of not huge weeks, but sort of decent weeks after NCAAs, probably around that 100 to 110k mark again, and then very light week before NCAAs, Zatopek. Just sort of adjusting to the time zone and let my body recover from that. So I wouldn't even know what my mileage was for that week. But no, and then I guess we did. So our basic setup was 2 sessions a week, and then a long run, which would act as a third session. So you'd add some sort of pick up into that, whether it was you'd sort of work the hills or whatnot, or whether you'd have a dedicated amount of time where you would pick up your pace. So that was how we did it. And then two, I guess, lifting sessions. There wasn't much lifting going on. But it's more sort of, for me, this year was about getting stronger through my hip and glute region. So a lot of stuff, not with weights, but just body weight stuff, and sort of learning little twists on that. So we would, instead of just doing a plain squat, we would do like a crab walk or a extended squat, where you go down, touch the floor, and then sort of go up and extend your whole body up like that. It's just little things that work in different areas, trying to activate those regions and make them stronger. Another example is, like, instead of doing a standard plank, we would go into a sort of lowered push-up position, and then while keeping your body straight, be bringing like one leg up to your armpit, or one knee up to your armpit, and alternating those. So it's just really working on getting your hip and pelvic region a lot stronger. So we do that twice a week, and then another thing I was doing twice a week this year was work with our sprints coach at Villanova, Anthony Williams. So not necessarily working on getting faster, but just working on getting a more efficient stride. So instead of wasting energy with a big back kick, moving that forward, getting more upright, and having a knee drive, so I'm extending out further. And working the bigger muscles like your quads and your glutes instead of working your calves. And so that was something that we worked on a lot this year. So I would do that twice a week with him, basically until I started racing, just because it was a little bit taxing as far as energy levels go. But it was a lot of fun, actually. Like, it was stuff that you just wouldn't think you'd have to do, like explosive 20-metre sprints, and that was all we'd do. We wouldn't extend it out further. It would just be sort of making sure you were getting into that position like straight away, instead of sort of building up to it. So, but yeah, little things like that just I didn't think would have played a vital role 4 years ago, and you slowly realise that there's a lot more to the sport, or there's a lot more if you want to do well in the sport, than just running.
Just running. So, and is there a difference, Pat, in philosophy of training, US to Australia? I don't think I'm in a great position to say anything on that, just because my training, I think the training I had in high school was perfect for me, because it's allowed me to continue in the sport. I know a lot of the guys I ran with in high school aren't running now, just because they lost interest in the sport, or the training might have been a little too intense at the time, and it just wears on you a bit, both physically and mentally. So I never really had the same experience, I guess, because I wasn't running at a similar level. When I was back here, I was still running in high school, and then my first year out, I was sort of in limbo about what I was doing, trying to figure out whether I wanted to continue in the sport or not. So I think every coach has a different way about going about their things, but in the end they're all trying to work on the same areas. So it may seem different at the time when you're describing it, but realistically it's all coming back to that same workload. So
Yeah, I don't think there's a huge difference. I think it's just the mentality of the person who you're dealing with, both the coach and the athlete, and whether they've got a central mind focus on improving.
Just quickly, Pat, that strength conditioning session, you mentioned a lot of body weight stuff. How long would those 2 sessions take you in duration? Like half an hour, 45 minutes, 60 minutes?
Yeah, about 30 to 45 minutes usually. And honestly, that's not even the strength and conditioning itself a lot of the time. I mean, we do about 10 to 15 minutes of stretching to start it, just to sort of get you limbered up and whatnot. And then, so your last 25 to 30 minutes would be the strength and conditioning part of it. And it's not that taxing. It's not really sort of heavy breathing stuff, or it doesn't really, you're not sort of getting any sort of lactic in your system, but it's, you wake up the next morning, you're a little sore, which is what you need to be doing. I mean, if you're not sore the next day, you're not working the right areas. I think a lot of people get concerned when they're sore, but it's a good thing, just so long as you take care of it, at the time. So,
well, Pat, it must be working, because I was doing my research for this interview and looking at some footage of your run. One of the first things I thought is, geez, they're nice stable hips. So, mate, from a physiotherapy perspective, mate, keep that stuff going. Pat, final questions. One bit of advice that you could issue to physical performers across the board, not just the running world, but from Pat Tiernan's career to date, what would that one bit of advice, if you could give that one tip, what would it be?
As far as just physical...
Just performing at your best. Getting the most out of your physical self.
I think just finding what's right for you. I mean, there's not a formula to it. I thought there was initially, and that's what we did. We stick to the same formula as other people, but I mean, every person's different, and you've got to... It's hard, but you've got to find what works for you. And it's a bit of trial and error here and there, but I think basically what I'm getting at is if something's not working, change it. Don't sort of pursue at it and think, it'll eventually come around. Like, if it's not working for you, then I mean, there's always going to be something that does. You've just got to find it. So keep persistent with it, and don't settle for something that's clearly not the right thing.
Nice, Pat. 3 people to dinner. You got the option, living or past. Who would be at your dinner table? Pat Tiernan.
3 people to dinner. Got to include Matty Hayden in them. Always loved. I'd love to meet him. I think he's just through his cricket career and off the field, just seemed like a great character. Love to have dinner with Jim Carrey. I think he's just a hilarious bloke. So it'd be great to see what he's like in person.
So we've got an Australian cricketer, a world comedian, Pat Tiernan.
A world comedian. And, third person would be... Gee, I don't know. Actually, no, I'm going to put down another athlete. I'm going to put down Kathy Freeman.
Nice.
I'll just sit down and sort of chat with her about her story and... everything that she went through when going into those 2 Olympics. So that'd be a great story, I think. So.
And a great story and a great table too, Pat.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how the dynamic of the table would go.
Well, we're hoping to get Kathy on the program, Pat. So I might have to let her know that you're taking her to dinner sometime.
Yeah. I'll
come good on that.
Yeah, we'll say it's my share, but we'll see how we go.
You'll have to organise Matty Hayden and Jim Carrey. I can't help you there.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
But Pat, mate, if we like to have guests on the program issue the listeners a physical challenge for the week. This can be something very hard or something entry level. What's Pat Tiernan's physical challenge to listeners of this program going to be, Pat?
My physical challenge for the week would be to, I reckon, build up to let's get them to build up to either a 30-minute. Wait, what sort of listeners do we have to this program first?
Pat, we have a whole range, mate. Not just runners. So you can think running specific, or you can think anything you like.
Anything. All right.
You're the coach.
Let's see if we can get a good high elbow with a cover drive going.
a good high elbow with a cover drive.
Yeah. Just given the Boxing Day test and whatnot for the week, and see if we can get people playing a good front foot cover drive.
I'm going to have to get you, Pat, to get a video of that today and send it to me so we can put it in the show notes. Is that cool, out the backyard of your place?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, listeners, so if you jump over the show notes, pogophysio.com.au, you'll see a video of Pat Tiernan doing this cricket move, and you can try and emulate that. But Pat, in terms of following your journey, where can listeners follow you on social? What are your handles?
I think I'm just at Tiernan_Patrick on Twitter, and Instagram is ptiernan7. I think. So those are my two forms of social media. But yeah.
Fantastic. We'll hook those up, listeners, in the show notes. You can jump over. We'll also include the video of Pat winning the NCAA Championship, coming down the straight with another bloke. Hot on your heels, Pat, but you got him, mate, and flew the flag for Australia. So nicely done.
Yeah, he's a very talented athlete, Justin. So I'm hoping he keeps going in the sport. He's an exciting future to watch there.
And, mate, likewise yourself. And I must say, Pat, you're what I expected, and that's a humble but obviously very gifted athlete. And, mate, I think you're just at the beginnings of what's going to be an exciting career. So, Pat, on behalf of myself and the listeners of the program, we wish you all the best, and, mate, look forward to seeing you in the lead up to the Com Games here on the Gold Coast.
Cheers, mate. Really appreciate being on the show. Thanks for having me.
So there you have it. I trust you enjoyed this episode of the Physical Performance Show featuring Mr. Patrick Tiernan. What a young star on the rise. I really enjoyed my conversation with Patrick. He's such a down-to-earth Aussie bloke, and looking forward to seeing some great things from Patrick this year, 2017, and also in the years to come, particularly the Commonwealth Games here on the Gold Coast. That'll be an absolute blast, and we're not far away from it. That'll come around before we know it. Listeners, coming up next week on the Physical Performance Show, episode 42, I keep the running theme going and catch up with Cassie Cassandra Feen. Cassie is a runner who I've had the pleasure of getting to know in the last few years across the running scene here in Queensland and further abroad. Actually ran in the 2015 New York City Marathon with Cassie, and we had a bit of a laugh thinking, what are we both doing here? It was an outstanding event, obviously. But in this interview upcoming, I catch up with Cassie. We talk about all things, including her City to Surf dual wins in 2015 and 16. We talk about Cassie's Australian representation thus far and the dreams she's got going forwards. We also talk about the impact that losing her father as a teenager has had on her running career. We talk about so much, her training insights, her work as a fitness instructor inside the RAAF, and so much more. This was a whole lot of fun. I know you're going to really enjoy it. So be sure to tune in next week to the Physical Performance Show for episode 42. If you want to get the automatic updates too, be sure to just simply hit subscribe from within your app or your desktop or within iTunes, and that'll just automatically populate the podcast each week into your app or device. Guys, if you want to get the show notes, jump over to pogophysio.com.au. You'll find all the links that we mentioned throughout the interview, including Patrick's social media handles and the video that we reference of Patrick winning the NCAA Championships. And be sure to leave a quick review if you're yet to do so. And have a great week. Until next time, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.